not elderly. I'm old. I'm very old indeed. I'm 94.
To be elderly, it's really a great experience, I think.
I'm quite happy. I don't worry about nothing. All I worry about is I don't want to die. I want to live to 100.
Well, I should say my father died at 94. His ambition was to live to be 94, and he just made it by about a week. He was knocking about right up to the very end. My grandparents on both sides, one made 93, the other made 95, and they were healthy, and they kept on the go right up to the very end. And that's what I want to do. I want to be able to wear out, not rust out.
Last year, World in Action recorded the views and the beliefs of children and put them together to make a profile of young Britain. This report we called 7 Up. Tonight, we present a companion report, a profile of old Britain.
It's lovely. I find it's lovely. Everybody is so sweet to me.
We've got to get older, and it isn't until we get elderly that we realise that we have got older.
Well, I feel that we're better looked after than our parents were.
We have everything that we want, more than our parents had.
Well, I reckon the only bad thing is going to be elderly is going in hospitals and having operations.
Well, of course, you can't get about so quickly. We try to do the same things, but it's more effort.
Well, one of the things, of course, is that it's very nice to be free from official duties and to feel that one is one's own boss and one is able to follow one's own habits and hobbies and so on.
In this present age, well, I think we've got a good many advantages compared with those of olden days.
I don't know really what to say. You will have to be looked after, and if you're a tall and independent person, that is very trying. That's a disadvantage.
There are so many elderly, and they must be looked after, and they can't all live in hospitals and take up the beds there of the people who come in to be nursed. So that homes will have to be made for them, and they can be put there.
Well, all you've got to do is to be waiting for the end, that's all, yeah.
The first and fundamental thing about old people is that although they are of today, today's world is often a stranger to them.
It's rather like a panorama, moving very rapidly, much more so than in the past.
Crazy in lots of ways. It is fantastic.
You can look back and think what silly phones some of them are coming up today.
Well, there's all the traffic, for one thing. You risk your life every time you go to town.
It strikes me as being pretty dreadful. Absolutely. All these wretched countries that have taken and gone away from our empire, what are they doing? Just fighting each other. No, I think that as far as we're concerned, it's awful. I much prefer it in Queen Victoria's time.
And what was it like in Queen Victoria's time?
These names made news. Gladstone, David Livingstone, Buffalo Bill, Sarah Bernhardt, and W.G. Grace. Big news for the rich was the new self-moving horseless carriage, and for the not-so-rich, the bicycle. For Britain, it was a time of enormous international power and prosperity. For millions of Britons, it was a time of deep personal poverty.
Old people remember.
I mean, in olden times, going back to my mother's days, they had 10 shillings a week, nothing else, and then it meant the workhouse for them if they couldn't pay their way. That's how it was.
My father was in the tailoring business, and he was at home. He worked at home, and of course I had to go in and out the city with his work to Birchin Lane, Cornhill. So of course I knew the city very well then, all around the Royal Exchange, because I had to walk. There wasn't the money for fares, so I had to walk there and back. And that was from Dalston, nearly Dalston, to the Royal Exchange and back with his work. And sometimes twice a day I do that.
Not very pleasant, it wasn't. It was plenty of work.
Oh, I'm the youngest of 15. So we had a lovely time.
When I was only 10 years of age, I started round the streets with my para. So I come away from Dr. Menardo's school. And from him out selling coke and firewood. And I take Mother home a tenner or a shilling, and she used to go and get, well, she didn't go, we used to go and get her off on a bit of 3/4. Time we got back, she'd had a poker in the fire. She'd had a poker in the fire, and then they'd wipe the poker and put the poker in the beer and drink it.
For one thing, the old age was as a dread. You wondered that you were going into the workhouse, whereas that dread has been dispelled today. I personally can dispel that fear. I have no fear, and I would tell others that no need to fear old age today. But our parents had a dread.
For the very old, one man who etched his name deep into their memories was Otto von Bismarck, architect and first Chancellor of modern United Germany. 94-year-old Mrs. Clara Hahn remembers.
I was staying in Hamburg with some relations in the year 1893, 3 years after the Kaiser Wilhelm had dismissed Bismarck. Everyone knew that he had retired to his estate, Friedrichsruh, near Hamburg, and that he went out for a walk every morning, so people went out and tried to catch a glimpse of him. A friend of mine who had brought his camera and I decided we'd try and get a photograph. So out we went. Just as the stable clock struck 12, the garden gate swung open and out he came. His Great Dane, the famous dog, was beside him. I went to meet him, carrying a bunch of flowers. He raised his hat, bowed very politely, and said, "But young lady, this is all wrong. Old gentlemen don't accept flowers from girls, surely." And he picked a red rose out of the bunch and presented it to me with another polite bow. Then he asked where I'd come from. I said, "Manchester." "Oh," he said, "Manchester, Cottonopolis, the stronghold of what you English call liberalism." I wasn't going to be decoyed into deep waters. So I asked him whether it was true that once as a young student he had dived into the Rhine and swum quite a distance against the current. "Yes," he said, "I suppose you've been reading my friend Motley's book about me. It's quite true. I've had to swim against the current so often in my long life. It's a very good thing I started young, isn't it?" So I risked another question. "Did you like that cartoon in Punch, the one dropping the pilot?" He said, "I delight in it. It hangs framed over my writing table in my study, and every visitor's attention is drawn to it." And with that he drew himself up to his full height, and I, with nothing but 5'9", felt very small indeed. I had met one of the greatest men of the 19th century.
Strangely, perhaps, the nation's old people are not universal worriers.
I told my husband once that once I lost interest in my home, that was the time for him to worry.
I haven't any, only money. That's all. I haven't any worries, not that I know of.
I really don't think I've got any anxieties that I can think of at the moment.
Worry? No, I've got nothing to worry over. There's nothing that I can worry over.
But some of the problems which beset all the community have greater impact on the old. The key problem is health.
Good health comes before anything, because it doesn't matter what money you've got, you can't enjoy it if you haven't got good health, and I've had very bad health.
I used to be an exhibition dancer in my younger years, and I find now that I have a bit of a job to walk half a mile. I get a pain in my shins that even though I'm only 67, I feel like some of the men who are now around about 90.
We would all like to do a little bit to be able to go about, but when you get turned 80, you can't expect it.
Well, if you've your health, that's one of the good things. And if you're not well, it's one of the bad things.
That is one of the things that I think is very unfortunate for elderly people, this proneness to rheumatism, arthritis and kindred complaints.
I should hate to suddenly become crippled or anything like that. I should be terribly upset if I couldn't get out and about.
their health is the chief thing, I think. And I think a lot of elderly ladies don't know much about the men. They get a little pain and they think, well, I'll rest that leg today. And so they stay indoors and they rest the leg. Next day, they rest it a little bit more until they get into the habit they don't want to go out. Now, I make myself go out every day.
I look well and I'm healthy, but I'm not.
After health, the old are constantly concerned about money, for even with the recent increase in old age pensions, those who have to cope on a basic pension of £4 a week are chronically poor. Despite their poverty and need to watch every penny, however, the old remain oddly cheerful about their state.
But then I don't think as you grow older you need so much money.
I keep me pension, I pay me way, and we live well.
We've got quite a decent pension which enables us to live far more comfortably than our forefathers did.
Old age pensioners do want help, and so I think do a lot of other people. They work very hard, and I think it's right the state should do what they can to help them.
I'll tell you what the difference it made to me when I had it, and I worked for it. I mean, I didn't have it till I got it, and I thought, thank God. And now I can't ever want. The house is my own, and the old age pension will be raising taxes.
And the national assistance gentleman told me there was no more in applying for national assistance than people for children's allowance, and they'd be most kind to me. I never thought I'd have to come to accept national assistance, but I did, and it's no disgrace.
An important factor in their financial struggles is the question of retirement. Some men are glad they retired.
I retired 10 years ago. I could have gone on for another 2 years, but I felt physically and mentally tired, and I thought, if you don't get out soon, you won't have any retirement.
I think it's a good thing that they retire to make room for other people. I mean, there are many ways of looking at it, of course, but I think there are lots of people that hang on too long and hold the youngsters back. And I think it's a good thing to get out and let somebody else have a go, and you have a go at enjoying yourself.
Well, the main thing is to have some money to retire on, isn't it?
But we find that for every man who is glad to retire, there seems to be another who resents his retirement.
I was finished at 60, but to make room for oncomers, newcomers. I've never had a job since. I've offered to work for nothing. Nobody seems to want me.
I think a man at 65 years of age, if he has health and strength to carry on to work, he should work.
Of course, I can't say really about the problems of retirement because I still work, you see, and I would feel that if anyone has any skill at all, however small it might be, there is a market for that skill and it can be used.
It'd been rather bad for this country if Churchill had retired at 65, wouldn't it? And wasn't allowed to do it. Good job he wasn't a civil servant, otherwise he would have retired at 60.
For old women, the problem is not the same.
Women can take up a bit of knitting, or they can go to a woman's afternoon club. I know men have clubs too, but they're of different sorts. But, I mean, getting in around the home and around the locality, they haven't the same advantages as a woman.
The attitude to retirement is also part of another problem, loneliness. At work, a man has companionship. At home, he is all too often alone.
And I think a man that just retires and comes home solely with the idea of pottering about in his garden and doing the occasional washing up for his wife is going to find life pretty empty. Providing a man is in good health, I feel that he should have something, either a serious type of hobby or some lighter type of job to occupy his time and his mind and prevent him from rusting.
What is the true nature of loneliness among the old? It takes several forms.
You see, a lot of these elderly people have lived in cottages, and some of those cottages are back to back, and or neighbours, and of course they're very friendly, helpful to each other.
Well, many of those cottages have been demolished. And so those people have had to go out into these big housing estates in the outskirts of the city, where they're far from friends and far from neighbours, and they felt very, very lonely.
People who are married and have a husband, they hope that they will still have him for many years. They hate the thought that one day they may possibly be alone. I think that's the great worry. It's the great worry to me. If I allow myself to think of it, I couldn't bear the thought of ever being alone.
Well, being alone and being lonely, I think they worry about that.
You know, it's very lonely for some of the old darlings who can't get up or down, and they feel down, or then they're just there. I think that's the real worry of old folks living alone.
But can anything be done for old people who live alone?
I think the main thing, really, is something like our old warden system. We used to have that a few years ago. We had a really good warden system going in Teddington, and we had a street leader in every road, and they had a ticket in the window to show they were the street leader. And we had the whole of the town in 4 areas where we had an area leader. I was an area leader myself, and anything they couldn't cope with themselves, they went to their area leader. But the main thing was the old people knew their street leader, and also the street leader knew how many old people she had in the road, because previous to this we had canvassed the road to find out every house that had old people in it. We knew their circumstances, what their ailments were, and everything.
One of the things I would like to see is what they call the good neighbour list done. Somebody to go in and do the shopping for the old people, and then to be able to go to the town hall, like they do, I think, is it Shoreditch or one of the East End boroughs. They go and do 3 or 4 old ladies shopping, and go in the evening, see if they're right, and they just walk in and get 10 shillings a week, you see, and just to keep an eye on the old ladies. It's called the good neighbour. I would like to see that in the borough very, very much.
Well, one thing that's been, I thought about a lot lately, hearing of old people being found in their homes alone or dead, that I think there should be a way for pensioners who have nothing but their pension, for the government to install telephones to be used for help only. That's one thing.
Probably the best answer to old people's loneliness is love and attention from their own children. But on this, the old people of Britain, who seem to have a deep strain of independence in them, are divided.
Well, I think that children do owe a responsibility to parents. The children have been cared for, educated, given a good start in life, and I think that with an average home, that automatically means that the children would care for their parents if the need arose. But of course, one has to consider the difficult, crotchety elderly people that it would be very difficult to live with.
But in the old days, of course, I think that all children had to, whether they wanted to or not, look after their parents.
I don't expect them to look after me or nurse me because I've got old and because they were my children and I brought them up and put them to school when they were young.
In the old days, I think they felt it was their duty to stay at home.
Oh, no, certainly not. No. We've got quite enough to do to look after their families.
Well, children, if you've done your duty, they help you every way they can, but we should not be a responsibility to our children.
Yes, I think they have. But of course, the parents only earn it by the way they treat the children when they're young.
Well, I think they should certainly not neglect you.
Well, it's all according to how the parents are fixed.
A condition common to nearly all old people is this simple proposition: they are old and they know it. Most of them live with this realization, but a few think something has to be done about it. One of that few is 85-year-old Mrs. Dorothy Rose of Kensington.
I think we all live too long. The elderly people live too long. They're 99 and 101. Gosh, we don't want them. You're senile, you're very old, you have to have everything done for you, and you're dependent on the people who look after you. Well, I think that euthanasia should come in. It will, you see. I shan't live to see it, but it will. They're going to do it, I'm certain. They'll have to.
The old are old, and nothing can change that. This they know. So they count their blessings and their pleasures.
Oh, the pleasures of a life, I've had that when I was young.
Well, there are a lot of advantages, I suppose, of being elderly. You can sit back and take a back seat.
The simple things of life. I've never been too keen on going to the theatre or the cinemas. I like an open air life.
There's a sense of freedom, and you can just please yourself what you do. But on the other hand, it's very frustrating. You feel you want to do so much and you can't.
The only thing I can do now is to see television, because I can't read at all now, you see. I can't read it. And
85, I'm 86 in November. I don't get fatigue at all by walking 3 miles, or even carrying on. I still carry on with my gardening.
Oh, I do a lot of things that I like. I like cards, whist, halfpenny nap. Oh, I like cards, all right.
Well, I like a little bit of whist, and I like go out days out in. It's like that, a few on holiday or something like that, but I'm quite comfortable in my own house.
Working. Needlework, knitting, doing my own work, my own housework.
to have a place of your own to live in. You know, it doesn't do to live with in-laws if you can help it, if you can have a flat, and as long as you can be a bit dependent, you know.
Even towards the end of one's life, there are still thoughts of the future, thoughts and hopes. World in Action asked the people who have been on the screens these last 25 minutes, whose average age is 79, what they want of tomorrow.
I hope that I shall be able to keep reasonably up with things that go on in the world and be interested in outside things, not just be wrapped up in myself entirely inside.
I'm afraid when you get to 75, there isn't much to look forward to. I don't want to start quoting any Abraham Lincoln, freedom from want and freedom from all the rest of it. I think if they can have good health and just a moderate income so that they haven't to watch every penny that they spend. That's what I should say. I should like that.
I would think if you had someone, family near you, or anything to come and see you, and you was independent. That's the main thing.
I'm getting so that I just want to sit in a chair. I'm 83, and I just want to sit in a chair and take things easy now, but I just want quiet and comfort.
Well, I think I've got what I want. I don't think I can get more out of life than I do.
Happiness and the power to help other people as much as we can.
Oh, I think I've got everything that I want. I don't see that there's anything else in life that I want.
Well, to have your health for one thing, and to be happy and sociable.
I want to enjoy myself as much as I can.
Do the old really find the contentment they deserve? What more do they want?
Well, I don't think I want much else out of life now. Peace. Absolutely nothing but peace.
What I'm doing now, breathing.
For the next 4 weeks, World in Action is off the air. In its place, 4 programs in the series Another World will be shown. The first is about this bird. It's a peregrine falcon and is used in a sport which has been in existence for over 2,000 years. See the bird that is trained to kill to order next week at 10:05.